we continue to pursue the arcane laws in an endeavor to come to that realization of what is there when stillness and movement meet. On Thursday, there was the occasion to quote an often said phrase by a Divine Mother. She would always say to us, you have to have discrimination, renunciation, and concentration. Discrimination between what is real and not real. Renouncing of that which is not real, and concentration on that which is real. But Alex asked the question, how do we tell what is real? And this was answered with another question. If anything that changes is not real, what is it that is unchanging in your life? That's the real. Concentrate on it. And this brought up several little stories that allow us perhaps to have a discussion about it. But first, there's that saying, a little story about the one who became a very great Sufi sheikh by the name of Ibn Arabi. He went to his own master, and his master sat him down and said, there is a sentence in the Quran which says, I have no need for reliance on them, nor do I need them to feed me. What is the meaning of this sentence? Ibn Arabi remained silent. He quietly stood up and left his master. 4 years later, he came back into his master's presence, and his master said to him, when you were here, I asked you a question. 4 years have passed. Now it is time for you to answer this question. Perhaps this applies also to us. But first, there are several little stories, perhaps already known to you in one form or another. There is that time when Moses was walking in the desert, when he came across a man who was dying of thirst. And when he came close, the man cried to him, please, please help me. And Moses said, wait, I will go and bring water for you. Moses went to a nearby oasis, but when he came back with the flagon of water, he found that the man was being eaten by wild beasts, even though he was still not deceased, and his cries were pitiful and wrenched the heart of Moses to the degree that Moses looked up to heaven and said, God, God, why do you make this man suffer so? And the answer that Moses received was, this was a pious man who relied only on me for his needs. But at this moment, he called on you a man. For this, such is his fate. But then, in opposition to this, we have the story, well known, its versions, of the man, a pious man, whose house became flooded, so he climbed on the roof. And as he was on the roof, he importuned God, "Please, God, come and help me in my hour of need." And a canoe came along. And the man, seeing the canoe, said, "Go away, save someone else, because God's going to save me." So he kept calling on God. And then a motorboat came along. And the man said, "Oh, go away, save someone else. God's going to save me." And then a helicopter came along. And he shouted up to the helicopter, "No, don't bother about saving me. God's going to help me." So the helicopter went away. And he drowned. And when he was up at the pearly gates, he said to St. Peter at the gate, but I called on God and he didn't come and help me. Why didn't he save me?" And St. Peter said, "Well, God sent you a canoe and a motorboat and a helicopter. Why didn't you take your opportunity?" So we have these two conflicting stories, it so seems. But then there's a final story, just to add another ingredient to the mix. And it's about a shepherd. This shepherd had no knowledge of God at all. He'd never read a holy book. He'd never had anyone to teach him about a higher being of any kind at all. All he knew was a simple life about looking after his sheep. But every day, when he went out to the fields to look after his flock, he would give some prayer. One day he said, "Oh, great being, today I'm going to shear my sheep, and I wish that I could make a soft wool coat for you to wear." And then another day, when he was sitting on a soft mossy field, watching his flock as they grazed, he said, "Oh, great Lord of the universe, who give us this vastness in which to rest, this soft place in which to watch my sheep, I wish there was something that I could do. If only I could take this soft moss and make it into something with which I could thank you." But then one day he was sitting by a little stream, fishing for his dinner. And as he put his line in the water, he said, "Oh, great Lord and Maker of all things, thank you for the worm that lies on my hook, and for the fish that I'm going to catch for my dinner. I wish that I could cook this fish and share it with you." But as he was saying this, a learned religious scholar came by and heard him and said, "What are you saying?" And the shepherd said, "Well, I'm just giving my thanks to the Maker of all things." The scholar scoffed at him. "You stupid fellow, do you think God needs to eat and God needs to drink and God needs to have something?" And the poor shepherd was quite shattered and tears rolled down his face. He said, well, what should I do?" And the scholar said, "I'll teach you some proper prayers." So he sat the shepherd down and he quoted the prayers that were in the sacred books that he knew. And it was in a language totally foreign to the poor shepherd. But he tried his best, and 5 times the scholar repeated the prayers to him. And the shepherd scratched his head, thinking, I don't know that I'm going to be able to remember this. And sure enough, when the scholar got up and walked away, the shepherd went back to cook his fish, but now he was very sad, and he couldn't, no matter how much he tried, he could not remember the prayers that the scholar had taught him. So he became silent and sad, very melancholy. He was so ashamed of his ignorance. But that night, when the scholar was asleep, he had a dream. He dreamt that God came to him and scolded him, admonished him, telling him, how dare you stop the shepherd from praying? The prayers that most offer up are just words, 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 words. And this shepherd gives me his thanks and prayers from his heart. Go, tell him to keep praying in the way that he has. Much chastened, the scholar the next day went out to find the shepherd. He looked here and there and everywhere. He couldn't find him, and finally he asked someone on the road, do you know someone who speaks to God every day? Oh, said the man, that would be the shepherd. He takes his flock up to that little hill up there. You'll probably find him there. So when the scholar climbed the hill, there was the shepherd sitting sadly, with tears still running down his face, silent. The scholar approached him and said, I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. God has spoken to me and told me, tell the shepherd to keep saying his prayers. Your prayers, he said to the shepherd, are far, far greater than mine, because your prayers come from your heart. Mine only come from my lips. How do we reconcile this? How do we reconcile these stories in us? What do they mean? What is the answer to that question that was asked by the master of Ibn Arabi? I need no provision from them, nor do I need them to feed me. And yet, we have this story of the canoe, the boat, the helicopter. Where do we go? What is it that remains unchanging in us? The real. What is it that remains when our needs come and go, our desires come and go? What's been there all along and remains constant, never changing.
It's a love energy that never changes.
Yes.
I say it's a void.
A void. Love, a void.
The source is unchanging, but the form changes.
Yes.
Suffering never ends either. Love never ends, but neither does suffering.
Uh-huh. So why does it elicit then from the shepherd a recognition, unbidden, acknowledgement, unbidden? Thank you. Thank you for the rain. Thank you for the moss on which I sit. Thank you for the fish that I catch.
Gratitude for life.
Gratitude for life.
And that doesn't change the things that he's grateful for change, but that feeling, gratitude for life doesn't change.
Doesn't change. No.
So it's like the love of life, the love,
Yes.
joy of life.
And yet we're all right in what we say. Avoid the love, the suffering.
I think the sense of gratitude comes with the love energies.
Yeah.
It's part of it.
I think it comes with suffering.
Right. So here is a difference of perception. And yet with that constancy, we have what is there for us at the moment as the real and the unchanging. If we concentrate on that, just like if we concentrate on a tree or a leaf or our own image in the mirror, it's going to, of its nature, shift and change to give us a different image. So why do we say discrimination, renunciation and concentration? Discrimination between the real and the unreal. Renunciation of what is not real. What does that do for us? Where does that bring us?
God's always there, it's just that I'm not all the time there.
All right. And this in itself brings us back to that.
So back to the
Yes.
gratitude, the faith or the joy or the love or whatever it is you want to call it.
Whatever it is you want to call it. And that is, in itself, answers our question. What is it that arises out of stillness and movement? Because this inevitably brings us back to a point of stillness. An absolute, isn't it? Whether it be a void or love or suffering, it's the still point, is it not? And from that point, inevitably, that we seek arises. Because here is the point where stillness and the movement of life meet.
Death.
Death, every moment. Death, every moment.
So can one see that as stillness? That still point to me is just the void.
Yes.
It's not stillness.
No. That's our reality. That's unchanging, and for some of us it remains a constant. Others it comes and goes. That's the difference. Let's bring it down to this question. How would you answer the question posed to Ibn Arabi? There is no need for provision from them, nor do I need them to feed me. What has that got to do with this point? This absolute.
It's the word need.
Absolutely.
That if we're looking at it as a need, then we're recognising some sort of a lack
In ourselves, and we're looking outside of ourselves. Got it.
Yeah.
Then also implies that they're nowhere close to unity consciousness.
No.
I feel a bit sorry for the man in the desert. Might be having a hard time myself getting it right.
Yeah, because this isn't the man that came along just like the canoe coming along. It's the hell.
Such is his fate.
Yeah, about the man. What if after a motorbike a damn cruise ship came along and he says, "Go on, save yourself"?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the man's an idiot. and you're old, Mark. You're old.